In progress. Am I audible? Can anyone confirm?
We can hear you, sir.
Yes. We'll wait for another 2 minutes just for some more people to join.
Sure.
Okay, so welcome all to this pre-incubation session 2. So we have with us Dr. AP Achar sir and Dr. Sachidananda Benigal. So the flow of the agenda of the program would be like I would be introducing Dr. Sachidananda Benigal in a short, and then he would be taking the session on business model canvas. Then at the end there would be 30 minutes question and answer session. So I thank Dr. Sachidananda Benigal for accepting our invite, for being the speaker for this session. I welcome you, sir. Am I audible, sir?
Yes, you are audible. Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Good morning. I want to introduce Dr. Sachidananda for the audience.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Sachidananda is presently working as a consultant for startups in Bengaluru. He is an engineer from NIT and MBA from IM. And he started his journey as an startup entrepreneur for some time. Then did a PhD in startup only. Then worked in IM Indore as a professor for 3 years. Recently took a break to work as a full-time for startup development. Very popular mentor for startup for ASNIT. He is a strategic advisor for ASNIT also. So with brief introduction, I welcome Dr. Sachidananda for this session and request all the participants to take the best use of this expertise.
Thanks, Acharya sir.
Yes, over to you, sir. You can start your session.
Yeah, thanks, Shraddha. Okay, good morning, everybody. I think one small change which I would like to make. This is a 1.5 hour session, right? So instead of keeping half an hour for questions at the end, as I'm talking about the specific subject, feel free to ask your questions. I would not like it to have a lecture mode. It's better done interactively. Okay, so I'll be eating into your 30 minutes and you will be eating into my presentation. That's how I look at it. Okay, so feel free to ask any questions at any point. And if you need any additional details, feel free to ask me to elaborate any point that is unclear. Okay. With that, I think I'm good to share the screen. Okay, here you go. Okay. To understand business model canvases, you have to understand what business models mean. But before that, we have to understand what businesses mean in general. Okay, so I have a very small exercise, which essentially is about what we all experienced in the last 3 years, or rather 4 years now, which is familiarizing ourselves with this specific product. Okay, so the COVID scare made this almost household, I mean, much larger than what it was intended to be before the COVID times. Okay, so what do you see here? I mean, it'll be good if you tell me what do you see on the screen here?
Sanitizers.
Okay, is that all that you see?
It can be hand wash or a sanitizer or some kind of liquid.
Okay, let me call it a sanitizer. Okay, what else do you see?
The dispenser.
Okay, so I'm going to highlight this specific section and call this as a dispenser. Anything else that you see?
Laws of physics.
Okay, that's all in the dispensing mechanism. Okay, and the bottle
The
within
way
which
of
you are putting this sanitizer,
the
right?
way
So I'll
of
call that as
cleaning
container.
your hand.
Yeah, we'll leave the hand away because yeah, I don't have images of the hand in almost all the other things. Okay, so
Simplified
so we have
sanitizing
three
into the simplified.
components that we see, what we generally call as sanitizer, right? We refer to the same product as a sanitizer or a hand wash, but it essentially is a composition of three elements. The sanitizer itself, which has generally an alcohol base. Then you have the dispensing mechanism, which puts the sanitizer out from a container within which it is enclosed. Okay, these are the three things. And this specific product was essentially available. I'll just call this as panel A and indicate as a pre-COVID availability of the product itself. Okay. Following this, about 6 months into the COVID, after the restrictions were steadily lifted, we got into having this product. I'll call this as product or the panel B. And if I ask you what changed from panel A to panel B, in sense, what changed as in out of the three components that we talked about, the dispenser, container, and sanitizer, what did you see as a change that came in as you moved from the pre-COVID era into the COVID era and then reopening phase, right? So this is about 6 months that you see into the COVID.
This is hands-free dispenser.
Yeah. So when you said hands-free, what specific element of the three changed? If I call it as a sanitizer, container, and dispenser, what specific thing changed?
The method of operation, right? Method of
So you
handling.
call that as a dispensing mechanism, right?
Correct.
The dispenser, I will call it as dispenser plus plus. Okay, that has changed, but most likely the sanitizer has not changed drastically. Maybe the composition could include a bit more alcohol, less of some other chemicals, etc., that were being put in one, etc. More utilitarian as a sanitizer. But visually, we see it as what has changed is not the container, not the sanitizer, but the dispensing mechanism itself. Now I'll just move about another year ahead. So this is about another 12 months ahead, and we go to panel C, right? As we go to panel C, and you begin seeing this innovation in the same product, right? And in terms of how do you see the sanitizer availability around you, you begin seeing that this is one of the variants that begins coming out. If I ask, which element has changed now?
I think it is sensor based, automatic.
So you're essentially saying it is a dispensing mechanism
Yes, yes.
that seems to have increased. So this is a dispenser 2 variation. Has anything else changed?
Upgradation, technology upgradation, sir.
Yeah, that is all for the dispensing mechanism. What else?
It happens.
Pardon?
It's automatic, right? No manual operation.
Yeah, it is automatic. That is a dispensing mechanism. So dispensing mechanism is a sensor-based mechanism that you're seeing. But in addition to this, you see the container was a bottle here. The container was a bottle here. But here it is not bottle based. It is about you refilling the sanitizer directly. So you can say the container here has also been upgraded. But we will still refer to this as a transition in the sanitizer space itself, right? So you have a core product, and you simply see that these are not core to what its function is. The sanitizer function is a cleaning element, but there are these peripheral elements that you see, the dispenser and the container, which seem to be the ones which are actually undergoing transition. And this transition is driven by something else which is happening around, not just the COVID, but also the need for this specific thing to adapt to the COVID changes. So, what do I mean by that? So, if I say, where would you find the product that we see in panel A? Where would we have found it in the pre COVID era? Where would we, if we wanted a sanitizer, where would we go and get it? Not a hand wash, a sanitizer.
Medical shop.
Right? So you're talking about a medical retailer, medical store, a chemist or a druggist. And how would you know about this product?
Normally,
That this kind of a
medical field,
sanitizer exists and we have to go to a medical store and get it. How would we know?
those who are into this medical related,
Right. If you are from the medical field, you would know. But what if you are not? I don't know if you would have observed this small ads which would come from Dettol and Savlon at that point in time, right? So if somebody is really paying attention to those ads, which is one of the issues with advertising in general, people don't like to pay attention, but there is a constant effort to influence your thinking inherently, right? So you are seeing as an ad which is coming majorly from FMCG companies as such, right? From these FMCG companies, you are saying, look, we see an ad which says sanitizers are going to protect you from these germs. And where do we get it? We go to the medical store and say, okay, let's take it from the medical store, right? And what would be the typical context within which you would use the sanitizer at that time? You would take it home. You would probably put it in your car or at your home at a specific place and use it. But it is mostly for a family consumption. So if I say the number of users that you see in the product A, you're really referring it to saying it's a household consumption, right? By this, we are saying lesser than about 10 people who would use a pretty much a same sanitizer bottle that you've seen. You kind of use it, you kind of say this is for our own safety at our home. If I ask the same set of questions in panel 2, right? The same set of questions in panel 2. Where are we using it? Where did we begin seeing it? Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you're audible. Kindly unmute and answer for the questions.
Where would you see the product in panel B? Obviously not at homes, right?
Maybe at public places.
Right. Most likely at restaurants, right? Because those were the ones which were allowed to open for a parcel, but you would need to go and stand in the queue with your masks on. And there, if you're going to have a tea or whatever, they're saying, okay, please use this bottle. If it's a market or an entry into a departmental store, you began seeing this. So here, the number of people that they're trying to cater to increases from about 10 to about 50 to 100 and 50 to 150 people. That's the group. Nobody advertised about saying, okay, dispensers are now going to be available, right? Because of the context of COVID, the information was already percolating. People are paying so much attention, media is already covering about it. So whoever designed this stand very quickly began seeing other people who could actually fabricate the same stand and also make it available to everybody around very quickly. Okay. Now, if you say, where would I see this specific design in panel C? Where would I generally see it?
Shopping complex, airports, or some
Right.
places
So where you
where
have more than about 500 people walking in and walking out, it's very difficult to keep a maintenance of what you see in the design too, right? So in terms of users of the product, you're seeing an increasing usage numbers which are driving the whole picture here. Now, if I ask another business side question to this, in panel A, B, and C, who are the people who are making money? So question now is about money, right? So we saw that in phase one, it was designed and targeted at households with lesser than about 10 people. The way to reach them was advertisings that the specific FMCG companies would do. And you had a medical store as an outlet from where you would get it. So if I ask who is making in this specific stage, who is making money, what would it be?
You mean who is making money in the distribution chain?
Correct. Who is making the maximum? If I give 100 rupees, who will be making the maximum money?
The middleman, sir.
Who's that middleman?
sanitizer companies.
Exactly. It
Sanitizer
is
manufacturers.
when you say sanitizer company, you got to be very careful. Okay. It's like the people who are making money are not the manufacturers of the sanitizer. They are the people who are marketing the sanitizer. The people who are marketing the sanitizers are the Detolls of the world, the Savlons of the world. If you go to a medical store and give me a sanitizer, no, that's not what you're asking. Give me a Dettol sanitizer. Give me a Savlon sanitizer. So the brand association is making that sale come to them, even if it is a very small market that existed for sanitizers at that time, right? So in the sanitizer market itself, the people who had created a mind space for the specific brand are the people who are making money. The manufacturer at this point, manufacturer of sanitizer, the manufacturer of the bottle or the dispenser, we're all making a marginal money. They are like bulk procurement exercises, right? I've contracted Savlon or Dettol has contracted with these people in bulk, saying I need about 50,000 of these bottles. I need this much liters of the Savlon here. I mean, of the sanitizer here. We'll package it in our mechanism and you ship it to us, or ship it directly from there to the distributor, right? So the people who are making the maximum margin in the whole story are the FMCG companies in scenario one. Move to scenario two, that is panel B. Here we don't have ads, remember, right? We are not looking at it from medical stores per se, right? And it is not designed for households either. So who is making money in the panel two?
You mean the
Fabricator.
That's an incorrect answer. The fabricator, you got to think carefully, right? The fabricator is probably going to sell that stand to you about 1,500 rupees. His cost of making the
So
making
one-time
the stand
investment.
itself could come to around 1,200 rupees. So it's making a very small margin and it's a one-time sale.
Again, a sanitizer middleman.
Sanitizer who? This time you're not going to go anywhere and ask, give me a Savlon sanitizer. right? You're going probably directly to the manufacturers, the chemical manufacturers, and saying, if you can actually make sanitizer, I would like to buy 5 liters of it. I really don't care whether it's Savlon or not, right? So you're asking for a bulk procurement. So from a push market that you saw here, where the FMCG company was making the most money, you're beginning to say it is not the person who's doing this peripheral value add, but the person who's just giving you this chemical incentive. So the people who are making money here is the sanitizer manufacturer as such, right? People go searching for it. So it's becoming a pull kind of a market where people are saying, I want it, please give it to me. And the same stuff here, if I ask this question of who is making money in panel C,
It is a refill kind of liquid who supplies that.
right? So what you're essentially saying is, I don't know if this is a contract. Until I know what that contract is, I cannot tell you who is making money. What do I mean by that? This installation of this new design requires you to have a sales force as the designer of this dispensing mechanism to go and convince the malls, airports, or hotels to say, please install it. And that, if I have not said I will manage the backend for you by automatically refilling this mechanism, I mean this device as such with sanitizer at periodic intervals, you're probably leaving a lot more money on the table and only making money out of sale of that device. So until you know what that specific thing is, you're taking that extra cost of developing a sales force which is going to go and sell first. Second, if I have not tried to appropriate that through an appropriate contract to say I will refill, my ability to make more money from the third panel, that is after installation of the devices, will reduce. So we don't know who is making money there until we see the contract. Okay. The purpose of business is essentially to see how we can make profits, right? And that's the element that most of us don't pay attention to. This is just to show you one element where I'm saying there is a product itself that is undergoing a change. There are external environmental factors which are changing, but in the process, there is an organization which is also changing. How do you want to design and how people will make money out of the whole thing is always a very dynamic context. So you got to think about it in two levels. The first level is what is called the product idea, and the second level is what you can call as a venture idea. I'll come to that in a bit. Okay. But essentially, ideas of whatever you're thinking of do not come as if they're fully formed. Only when you begin acting on it, does get a lot of details get filled in. Okay. So as Mark Zuckerberg says, it only becomes, when he says they, it means ideas. Ideas only become clear as you work on them. The most important element is for you to get started. The started is not about building the product. Remember that. The started is at the end of the session, I want you to understand, is by assessing whether somebody wants what you're trying to build, right? And will they pay for it? If they don't do this, it does not make sense at all. Okay. So the center of it is what I called the product idea, right? This is the product idea. And around it is the venture idea. Most times as entrepreneurs, what is very clear in our mind is this. The idea is the offering, right? We have seen a specific problem that people are facing in usage of a specific way of doing things or usage of a product already, and we come up with saying, okay, if I have this solution to this, I think people will buy it. That's a big assumption. People are using the product, they have committed to it already, but we're going to ask them to change. It has to be substantially interesting for them to change, right? But this is the element that is very clear and concrete in entrepreneur's mind. But what is not very clear is what you call as a venture idea concept. We don't ask these questions of saying who is paying for the product. How will people get to know about the offering at all? Even if they get to know, how will they buy it? Should I bundle it with something? What is the key value that I'm really giving in here? And most of these times when you're not thinking about this begins failing, especially when you go to the investors and say, look, I need money. They'll say, please show me traction. And then you say, what does that mean? It means show me that customers want your product and they're willing to pay for it. Okay, so what I want you to understand is that venture idea based thinking is absolutely essential, as important as the idea and the clarity that you have at the center of it, which is about your product idea. The venture idea element is what we will elaborate into business models. Okay. Okay. So I want you to shift your thinking from a product idea alone to saying we'll think about it as a venture idea in which there is a product that is embedded, in which there is a product which is playing a key role. Right? That's how you want to think about it. If you are movie buffs, I would suggest you watch this movie called The Founder. Okay. This is a story of McDonald, and you'll realize what I mean by saying think specifically about the venture idea. The venture idea element is where Mr. Kroc in this specific story builds and scales the business, whereas the McDonald brothers who founded the process did not do it very actively and quickly, and then ends up having only one store in California, right? So it did not become the major global brand that we know just because of the invention of the product or that process in this case, but because somebody actually took it out of the heads of the founders and made it big. Okay, so we'll not get into these details. Okay, so I've been talking about venture idea and what it means. It's an imagined future venture. That is, when you would have executed this, you would see that you have a product and offering. So essentially, there is. But in addition to that, you want to think about the market very carefully. And the last one is about the means of bringing this offering into existence, both as a product as well as to the market. Okay. And what I want you to focus on and tell me clearly is this specific word. So now, my next question is what do we mean by a market? What do we mean by a market?
It's a place where you exchange the service or a product for a value.
Okay, so essentially I
So
hear
market
these.
is
So there is
the network.
wait. Product slash service, which already has a value. This is one of the questions that I have, and you're saying it is happening at a place. Okay, and what is happening is exchange. But what is being exchanged? For that, you need money, right? So let's just say at a specific price, and somebody has the ability to pay ATP and willingness to pay. I've kind of explicitly linked so many components from that answer that you gave. Okay, what's the next one? Somebody had
The
another element.
network of producer, distributor, and consumer.
So you're saying it's a network of producer, distributor, and consumer. So I'll write consumer here, the distributor probably somewhere here.
And the demand and
There
supply.
are two elements to the producer, one which we call as probably a supplier here, because we are seeing there is somebody who's already producing it here, right? So I'm just calling the producer right over this. Yeah, you had something else?
Satisfying the demand and the production ratio.
Okay. So you're essentially seeing there is a demand for it and there is a supply issue for it. Okay.
There should be a channel of distribution, right?
Okay. So distributor slash distribution channel.
Margin, profit.
Okay, there is a price, and because you have a price, you have the cost, and then you will have a margin, or you have to have a profit, whichever way you call it.
So the cycle time, I don't know the correct word. How much
That's
time?
okay. I mean, what you're saying is the amount of time it takes to get something across. That's okay.
Does it matter?
I would not matter so much about the cycle time of you producing something, but if it is a time and seasonality in the market, I think that is important for you to think.
Product cost.
Yeah, there are the cost sides of things. Just like the selling price, there is the cost side of things. Okay.
Competition.
Competition. Okay, I'll just keep it outside. Similarly, you can say regulators,
Correct.
all
They are
these
also
outside for now.
part
Okay.
of the market, no, sir. They are also,
Pardon?
they are also
They
part of the
are
market.
they are deciding the game of the market. Okay. I want you to focus on understanding how a specific business operates. While they're all part of the market, I don't want us to distract from understanding at the center. We are trying to understand what is a business model, right? So if I complicate it with the business models of multiple companies, it becomes difficult.
Right.
That's
So
why I'm kind of pushing the
got it.
competition to the bottom.
Got it. Target customer, sir. Customer profile.
Thank you for the next word. Okay. There is a consumer, there you said there is a customer. Okay. So you said there is targeting.
Yes. Their need, no? Customer need.
Okay. There is not just a demand, there is a need. Maybe because you put a need, I'll call it as a want. And another equivalent word which I can call as a requirement.
Hmm.
And because you gave targeting, I will add in from MBA classes a few more. Call it segmentation. And then just like this, you want to position the product. Positioning. Okay. So there is some word in marketing. If you've done an MBA, you would have remembered it as S, T, and P, referring to segmentation, targeting, and positioning. The way you would do the segmentation and targeting could be based on a demographic background of people, or geographic background of people, or psychographic background of people. Essentially saying based on age and those similar parameters, or based on where they are located, or based on how they think about the society, the psychological status, etc. All these are
Purchasing
what
power, sir.
Pardon?
Purchasing power, or
The purchasing power, I put it out here as ability to pay and willingness to pay.
where is it, sir? I'm not seeing
Here,
it.
here.
Okay.
ATP and WTP.
Okay. Okay.
ATP is ability to pay and WTP is willingness to pay.
Okay. Partition. So the product quality.
Okay. One of the nature of values could be the quality.
Or the features what I give them, a nice logo.
Okay. See, one of the things you need to understand is the product and services are a bundle of, or a set of features.
Now for the given money or price, what I give them.
So you're essentially saying this is value for money. VFM.
I don't know, innovation,
Okay.
something different, disruption, innovation. What you showed previous example is a different approach of what is started as a handheld sanitizer to a bulk supply, where the cost has come down and can be used in mass.
That is one side of the story, but it is also like saying this is pulled, right? This is pulled by the market versus pushed by the market. One of the important things to consider whenever you're trying to coming up with your product is what is the timing of this kind of a product, right? So for example, if you were to develop a video conferencing solution in the 1960s, right, and people did not connect even over telephone, it would have become a very cumbersome proposition to do, right? So timing of your product, not just the nature of the innovation, plays an equivalently important factor, is a very important factor in whether what innovation or invention that you're trying to do sees the light of the day or not. Very simply, I mean, as a fact, Texas Instruments already had a video conferencing solution in the 1960s, late 1960s, and they demoed it in their expo. Okay, but people did not buy it. It was called a Pictaphone, if I'm right. Okay, for video conferencing to be abundantly available, it took the internet to be available, and that was in the late 90s. right? So timing is a very important factor. That's why I said if it is cycle time of your production, I'm not so worried about because that's under your control. Depends on the nature of technology you're using. But if it's a cycle that the market is going through, then it becomes a very important factor. And timing is just one of the factors in the cycles of the market itself.
So can I say you are talking about the ecosystem, like net?
No. I'm
Internet is
not
an
talking about the
ecosystem
ecosystem
for
only. I'm not talking about the ecosystem only because ecosystem is a loaded word. That's not where I'm going. I'm still trying to understand the
or
market as a
market
word.
preparedness. Market preparedness. What do you say?
Yeah, you can call it as an awareness. We should call it as a preparedness, but how do we know it is prepared? That's part of the question. Okay, but yeah, nonetheless, I think just to get us on track with the time, I'm going to add two more words here, essentially referring to buyers and users. And for the moment, what I will do is, okay, I mean, I'll probably use a different slide instead of this. I kind of ask this question a lot of times to a lot of groups of people, and the answers are pretty much what you people have been pointing out here, right? And if I next put in these points out in here, um, and get your focus onto one specific group that I just completed at the end, right? I want you to focus on these four words. All these four words refer to people in general. But we have these four words. If we are referring to these four words, the next logical thing to ask is why do we have four words to refer to the same group of people? Or an alternate way of asking the question is how are these four different from each other? The four words are consumer, customer, buyer, and user. How are these four words different from each other? Why are these four different?
Sir, can I?
Yeah, sure.
In pharmacy or medical field, no? When we sell a tablet or a capsule, the customer is the doctor who decides which brand it is. Calpol or any XY brand. User is the one who is ultimately going to take the product. A child, maybe an infant, user, final user. Consumer is the fellow who is paying, maybe his father or mother who is buying it. And I'm little confused between
If mother
consumer
or
and
father
buyer.
is buying it, why are we calling buyer as a separate word?
Consumer is here, both the buyer and user together is consumer, is my humble opinion.
Nice, good attempt, good attempt. Anybody else? It's okay. We are trying to understand. There is no right answer, wrong answer, so don't worry too much about it. Just go ahead and make an attempt.
The consumer in general parlance is the fellow who pays for the service.
No.
Consumer rights and all.
Consumer rights are very
Consumer
different.
is the one who has requirements.
Okay, somebody else does not have a requirement. That looks weird for me.
Customer, consumer. Sir, we'll
I mean,
go one by
we've
one,
been using
sir.
these words for a long time, right? But we're not applied our mind to it.
I can put it in a colloquial way. Buyer need not to be a user. The buyer is the one who pays for it. Just buy. I'm just going by the word. Consumer means the fellow who consumes.
Exactly. So essentially, you're saying a consumer is somebody who's consuming. A buyer is somebody who is buying. A user is somebody who's using, right? So the words by themselves are referring to what is central, what we call as the behavior here. Which behavior are we focusing on? If it is the usage behavior, then we are calling that person as the user. If it's the buying behavior, we are calling that person as the buyer. If it's a consumption behavior, we are referring to it as a consumer. Okay, very simply think about it. Give me an example of FMCG. FMCG stands for?
Fast moving consumer goods.
Give me an example.
Shampoo.
Right. So what happens as you are engaging with the shampoo? To the shampoo.
Question is not clear, sir. Sorry.
What happens to the shampoo as you're engaging with the shampoo? That is, if you're having a bath with the shampoo, what happens to the shampoo? The shampoo is getting consumed. The soap is getting consumed, right? It doesn't remain the same form as it remains, right? The good that you're really referring to is something that is getting consumed, and that is very important for us to think about it. I'll come to one example to show you why consumption behavior is important and why it is distinct from user. Have you found that some mobile apps that you have seem to be more easy to handle and deal with compared to some other apps? Some apps are very cumbersome, some apps are very easy to use. Why is that so?
The simplicity or the logical approach of the design.
That is
Because
because they have done what you call as a user experience story. So they looked at users using their platform or the app or the website, whichever it may be, and they say that this is the most likely use of the app searching something, right? If you go to the google.com, all that you see there is that small bar which says please type whatever and a button which says search. Nothing else distracts you from coming there, right? I don't know how many of you use a Macintosh instead MacBook or a Macintosh instead of a Windows laptop. And if you observe, where is the cross mark, that is the close button in a MacBook compared to a Windows book? The Windows close mark, that is the X in red that you see, is on the right top corner. And the red button to close in a Mac will be on the left top button. Why is this? Is this just because they want to say I'm a different operating system, or is there something that is a better UI? When I say UI, it means user interface. Which one has a better user interface?
If you see, most are right-handed. I feel the right side power button is
Not power button, close button.
close means what, sir? Sorry.
Close. Wrong mark. Close. You want to close a window, you go to the window and
Okay,
close it.
okay. So mouse is held in the right hand, so it is right side better.
And what is your natural movement of the right hand? If you move your hand, you'll realize you're making that arc, and that arc takes you to the right top corner. So the chance of you clicking that close button accidentally is also high, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
So a better user design is for you to make the close decision very consciously if there is no auto saving feature, right? If there is an auto saving feature, it is not a problem. But if there is no auto saving feature, it is better to put the close button on the left top. So a better UX design in a no auto save mode is obviously the Macintosh design, which is the left top, right? Similarly, think about the design of chairs. Think about the design of roads. Everywhere people are using the specific product, good, service, whichever you may think about, right? But that is the user story. Now let's come to the understanding a bit more nuanced about usage and consumption. In the mobile phone, you are the user of the mobile phone, but a consumer of the data that is there. What did I say? I said you are the user of the mobile phone, but you're a consumer of the data.
Yes, Airtel provides the data. Mobile provides the app or surfing app.
No, just the mobile phone itself. Just imagine, yes. And the mobile phone remains after your use. You see that, right? The mobile phone remains after your use. What got consumed as you are using an app also within the mobile phone itself was data, was power. So the consumer of the power, that's why we call it as battery is getting consumed. Optimize for battery. We don't say use the battery, right? So we got to be thinking carefully about the behavior that we are referring to here. Okay, and that understanding of the behavior is central to how you will make a lot of other decisions. Okay, now coming back to this distinction of the consumer and why is it very important for us to think. comes from an excellent case that all of us would have been aware of, which is the Chic sachets, Chic shampoo sachets, right? So in the late 80s, early 90s, India was only having a Head and Shoulder, Palmolive, or a Pantene as a big bottle of shampoo that was kept on the racks, and they did not have a sachet. The sachet was introduced for people to consume shampoo by this company called Kevin Care. Kevin Care was in the shampoo business itself, and they were selling shampoos in sachets at 5 rupees. With the idea that, look, most of the people are not very wealthy in India, so they will not pay about 150 rupees to 200 rupees for a bottle of shampoo. Most of their income would be used for groceries and all that. They can definitely purchase a 5 rupee sachet. They realize that that is giving an entry into the urban market, but the rural market, which they hoped to capture, is not happening. And that's when they said, let's do a market research very closely. And they began realizing that there is something very important to consider, which is that these people have their own cycles of how they earn and how they spend. So when they went to the rural place, they realized that that 5 rupees sachet once taken is used for a couple of drops of shampoo, then it is packed and kept back. And this may last for almost 3 weeks for the person who's already bought the shampoo. So it's less likely that they'll buy for the last 1 week because there's only 1 week that is remaining. I will get it in the next month's thing. But they realize that these same people would not mind spending for a 50 paise chocolate or whatever that is available. They said, what if we can actually make one drop of shampoo into one sachet and sell it at a price of 50 paise? And that essentially got into the 50 paise, 10 paise, 25 paise sachets, which were always hanging and made into the most rural of locations. And that was generally the Chic, which would make its entry into it, increasing the consumption, and as a result of that, the overall revenue from the rural markets for this company. If you look carefully at this, it had a coupled behavior of buying behavior, which is coming from saying, when do these people buy, how much they can buy, and what would increase the sale? Because I'm going and spending only 1 rupee, and that could last for one time. I could do it whenever I am going to use it. Versus if it is a 5 rupee, the consciousness would kick in, and me making that last sale at the end of the month would become very difficult. So that is one of the things. Another important thing you would have noted is at one point in the 2005 kind of a space, we had a lot of these prepaid recharge coupons, which would be as low as 5 rupees or lesser. Why do you think that came in? Again, it came from understanding the behavior of the people who are buying, that's the consumers. They realize that the person who is actually buying this very small tokens are not the people who have a regular income. They're the street hawkers who would say in the morning, give me 100 rupees from a local, what do you say, a banker or whoever. That person would hold back the interest and give them 90 at about 10% a day interest, right? So he or she is not getting 100 rupees in the hand, but get 90. They go to the market, they get their vegetables from there, put it on the cart, they begin selling it through the day. In the evening, they return the 100. Okay. So 90 given in the morning is to be returned to the 100. But through the day, they have money for the tea, they have money for whatever it is. Maybe that 5 rupees which they would get would be used for a call back home. Right. This is the benefit of realizing what is the kind of behavior that is driving your product or services usage. And the value that you're talking about is not the feature itself. This is not coming from imagination. This is coming from very careful understanding of the behavior. When, where, how do people actually need this product or service? So it should not simply be suspended in thin air, the product offering story, right? The last one, which is there, the word that we have not discussed enough, also has a root word. What do you think is a root word of customer here?
Does he customizes what he needs?
Exactly. It's
Oh.
not about customizes. Customization is the key. Okay. That person requires some kind of a customization. Why is this central and why is it so important that most times we are talking about it as customer segment? I'll come to that now. See, if in economics you have this story of demand and supply, right? You're essentially saying there is a demand and there is a supply, and at some point it will happen. In entrepreneurship, if this is already happening around you, how will you find a new market? Right? It becomes very difficult. We have to say what is the difference that this person may need, which is not catered through in this kind of a curve, right? Where is that lying? Is it lying here? Is it lying here? Is it lying here? I have no idea, right? So that is the kind of customization that you're really talking about. What do we mean here? That demand, want, need are all not visible to people clearly. If it is visible, it's already being catered to. So it requires us to say, what is this kind of customization? What is the kind of specific requirement that is existing? Only when that kind of a customization is found out very clearly first, can you aspire to create a market. If there is no kind of customization that you have understood as a requirement from the people out there, the market is not coming out going to emerge very clearly. Now remember, most of the time, the customization that you see around will be for one person or two people. That is not enough for us to create a market. We have to find a pattern in people who are asking for this kind of a customization. That is, it is not sufficient if we have one person. We need a group of people, okay, that have a very similar requirement. I'm just generally calling it as a requirement instead of a want or a need. I'm calling it as a requirement. And most importantly, you had specified one thing, which is called a network. Now I'll get that. I mean, I'm not going to use the word network for a very precise reason, which, if at all we have time, we'll discuss about it later. But it's about saying when somebody is doing something with it, is this person in touch with others for you to be able to influence other people around you? What do I mean by this? It means to say there has to be some self-referencing that is happening between the people, between that members of the group. What if this does not happen? If this does not happen, it means to say the cost of customer acquisition for you, the cost of acquiring the next customer is going to be equal or more costly than getting the first person, which makes the business unviable. For your business to be economical and operate at reasonable terms, the cost of customer acquisition has to be lesser as you find the requirement and the value that you're giving to these people very precisely, right? That group should be able to self-reference. You cannot make an ad campaign every single time. It is just costly. You will not survive. I mean, obviously, when you're rich, you can afford it, but you are operating as an entrepreneur under conditions of resource constraint. You cannot do that. You have to think about saying, is there a way in which people will find that requirement automatically? It could be as simple as saying the first customer wears, if assuming you are making a jacket for the school kids, and the school kids wears this jacket, I mean, college kids, wears the jacket and goes into his classroom. His friends are asking, where did you get it from? Where can we go and buy this? Essentially indicating that there is an influence that is happening, and this person could actually drive. And that's one of the reasons why the role of influencers is increasing in what we are seeing today in the networked world, as you called it. Right? In the internet world, the role of influencer seems to be happening because there's some guy who comes in front of the camera and is all shouting and saying, okay, I can define your opinion. I'm wearing this, look at it. Explicitly becoming a marketing channel, nothing else, right? And the influencers are trying to make money out of the whole thing. But at the base of it, it is for you to understand that unless you have the self-referencing element, the market will never take off. Not even if you have influences. The market should find a way of finding it among themselves. Be it B2B or B2C businesses, in both ways, they have to be finding a way. So when somebody said that customer is the doctor, I am not saying I'm going to customize for the doctor. The doctor is more like an influencer rather than a customer for me. Okay, that person is saying, look, this is what it is. The influencer can be overridden at that specific shop depending on the medical person who is sitting there, right? I don't have a Calpol, I can actually give you another paracetamol. Is that okay? And if you're okay, you say okay, right? There's generic drugs, which is a competition anyway, right? So you begin realizing that the customer segment is also a very simplistic definition of what a market means. What are we really referring to as a market? A group of people who have similar requirements. And when I leave it at this, it doesn't complete the story. It has to go into saying they have to have an ability to self-reference among themselves. And most importantly, or equally importantly, is the willingness to pay and the ability to pay that has to exist in that group, right? That is what you're referring to as a customer. When you're using either of these four words, remember what you're emphasizing is a specific kind of behavior. So don't go and try and make it a saying this person will be separate from this. They could be separate, but it is not necessary they are separate. They could all be the same. Okay. What we are referring to in any case is the behavior that is of interest for us when we are really making our point. When we are making the point of saying in this market, this is the kind of customization that will be catered to, that is when it becomes a customer segment. If they have a very broad category, we can combine it and say, okay, this is a macro segment or a macro market, whichever way you think about it. Right? If you're talking about consumption behavior, better call them as consumers. If you're referring to usage behavior, better call them as users. Buying behavior. Okay, the least cost thing is what operates. Your decisions are primarily driven by the price and not so much by the quality. Right? Indians are value for money people. All these are notions where we are saying the buying behavior of people can be summarized by this specific point. That is what we are saying. Okay. Now we have kind of dealt with the market side of it, but it's very important that we also understand this specific element of value. Now, this value is not about features that the product has. It's not only about quality. It is not about this. It is very importantly about how does this segment or this customer really find that value. What do I mean by that? I'll just give you an example for you to understand here. Assume that you are all going to deal with gold in some form. Okay. And if you are to make a decision of saying, should I put a jewelry? Should I become an investment firm? Should I become something else with the gold pot that you have identified? The question is about how do I really make it into a product, right? At that point in time, the utility of gold could be any of these, right? See, people like the designs. Gold is very, very flashy. So I think wearing it going on is a very nice way. I want to use it for gifting, could be a very different purpose. I want to use it as an investment tool, could be a very different purpose. I can allow it to for people to hide their black money, could be a very different purpose. There are 4 different routes that we can actually think from the very same gold. Now, which route will I go? I don't know, right? You don't know that a priori. That is why when you said, I found this pot of gold, I will make it into an investment firm, is your decision. It is not a decision which the customer is really saying, I will pay for that yet, right? You don't know that side of the story yet. Okay. So that's one of the important things that we need to think about as entrepreneurs. We do not know how the customer's reception is going to be for what we think is valuable in what we are doing. So a very important or a simple hack that I generally follow is follow your customers. It's important that we find a market, right? If when you follow the customer, they go around and say, look, how is this specific thing? I found this design very interesting. So how do you think about it fitting on my hand, for example? Right? You realize that it is the design that people are appreciating about it elsewhere. And then you follow and say, how quickly are people coming back to my store and figuring it out, asking for it? For example, another example that okay, I did an investment in this. Do people go out and tell about it to their family members? Can you follow it up? Is there a way of tracking? For you to realize that this market, in that we had 4 markets, right? Market 1, market 2, market 3, and 4. The market 1 seems to be growing very rapidly, not so much the market 2. Market 3 is very comparative, but not as much as 1. Then you can actually make sense. So very importantly, the key is understanding your customer segment very clearly. Now, for that specific thing, you got to ask, what job am I doing for them? What is the kind of job that you're doing? I'm not using the word want or need for this, but I'm calling it as a job, because you got to understand that what that specific customer who's bought it from you tomorrow may let go of you and shift to another company, right? It's just like hiring and firing. So your product is hired by the customer to do a specific job. If you're not doing that job well, the customer has the right to fire your product and find a new product which solves it. So you got to be carefully analyzing what the customer wants. So the process is very important. That's where we are saying understanding the customer is very, very critical. Now, let me just summarize what we did in this specific discussion into a structure. I just introduced these 2 red lines here. Okay, the line here and the line here. This essentially opens up for us a very different way we want to think about it. This is a market for the product or the service that we are introducing, and this is a market from which we are buying. I didn't explain too much about it. I've explained pretty much about the product market. You can also do a very similar analysis for the factor market. Factor market essentially refers to where we are getting the factors of production from. Okay, and your product typically sits in the center. Okay, your business is essentially trying to manage these 3 things: the factor market, the product market, and your product. If you think about fitting in between, has to be very conscious about what are the other 2 things that are around me. I am just fitting in and adding small value in this store. More importantly, I don't know whether this exists for me as a startup. I know this exists for me, but I don't know if this exists, whether customers exist for what I'm trying to do or not. Right? So that is one kind of business. Let me just, yeah, Dr. Ram, I'll just come back after I've done this specific slide, or maybe this next slide, and then come back. Yeah. Okay. So there is the supply side and there is the demand side. And what we said is you're going to see this, right? When I say this kind of an information flow, I'm referring to the information about the product that you are making, and the money coming back is about the payment that gets in. As a pipeline business, you sit inside here, make a transformation of whatever is coming from here, transform it, add some value, and push it to the demand side. This is typically one kind of a business. But that's not the only kind of business. This kind of business that I just talked about is called the pipeline business. At the other end of it, you have something called the platform businesses. These platform businesses are being extremely, extremely popular, becoming very popular these days with aggregators and all those things, right? They don't operate very similar to the supply and demand story. What they essentially do is very simply this. There's a demand and supply that is already existing. They create a nice wrapper around it. Okay, they create a support system around it. I would actually say a wrapper, because they try to wrap it. Unless they wrap it around, they cannot capture a lot of value, right? Once they do it, the attempt is to increase the number of people who are doing the demand and supply transactions on the platform. They're not really essential here, but they are trying to become important by doing things around this. So think about it as saying, or even before Ola and Uber and Taxi for Sure were all becoming very popular, you had a local taxi guy, you had rickshaw people. You could just walk to the closest bus stand and there will be 3 or 4 rickshaws waiting for you there, right? All that has just become more easier with this. You're making it easy. So the value you say is convenience, but that convenience you realize is extremely ephemeral. It's like It's there today, not there today. If people are not willing to come, the number of suppliers are not willing to come, you don't find that your cabs are getting booked in time, you won't begin using it again, right? So because you're not sitting in between, the challenges that you face as a platform business is very, very different. But if you're sitting in between and you're able to find a demand, you are a very different business than a platform business. So the pipeline business and platform businesses are almost like two different natured beasts. Now, having said that, it is important to understand that no company today is completely a platform business or a pipeline business. For example, if I say even the traditional banking system, right? Do you think it is a supply business and I mean a pipeline business, or is it more like a platform business? What is it? A traditional banking is just borrowing money from you and giving it to somebody. It's just matching the demand and supply without doing much in between, right? So they're closer to the platform business that way. So the next one is about an entire spectrum of businesses that you can think about. For example, you may have something to do with iron manufacturing, etc., or computer manufacturing, automobiles. These are closer to the pipeline businesses. The modern day businesses, as you see, are closer to the platform businesses. Okay, when I say modern, I'm not saying like recent. That's what I'm referring to. But you'll find that no single company is at one specific point. Most of them are very, very open to the idea of let me do a platform kind of a model. Platform dynamics are very different from the pipeline dynamics. The way you want to think about it is going to be very, very different. Yeah, Dr. Ram, you had a question.
Sorry, sir. I just want to know about the factor market. I'm a bit not clear about it.
See, in economics, you say there are three factors of production, right? The raw materials, which is the material, the manpower, and the money, right? This is all called as a factors of production. So that's why you call it this factor market. Where are you getting your money from? Where are you getting your raw material from? And where are you getting your people from? So that's essentially captured in what you call as a factor market.
Kind of resources, is it?
Yes.
Okay, sir. Thank you. So in your balancing, what you are saying, this side is customer market, this side is factor market. So factor
So
market is
essentially,
like
you're
raw
taking
material
stuff
cost.
from the factor market, you're doing some value add to it, and then you're passing it on to the product market.
So can I say the factor market includes raw material, capital
Yes.
cost, or overhead, or
See, I mean, I think you're trying to get into the cost side too quickly. I have just told you the broad structure. You'll begin realizing what I'm referring to now in the next slide or the slide after that.
okay.
Okay.
On the other side, what do you mean by customer market? Again, what do you mean?
Product market. Product market is where the product will be sold.
So we keep the word market here in the mind. That's all. That's all.
Yeah.
Okay.
Most importantly, it's like essentially coming from the word customer. That's where it is. That's why I said, look, understand it as saying what kind of customization is this person giving over somebody else. That is how you will base even in terms of finding your raw materials, right? If you have a set of suppliers and you're saying this component is will have 10,000. I mean, even if it's a screw, right? You can have 10,000 iterations of the user screw to, I mean, the hinge to open and close a door versus somebody will give you a 5,000. The 5,000 guy may actually give you it at 50 rupees. 10,000 guy may be giving it to you at 100 rupees. Will you take that 50 rupees more? These are things that you're doing on the factor market side. In that case, you are the buyer, right? You're trying to get it in bulk, but you're essentially calling it as saying, oh, what's this additional quality that I can expect from here? So this kind of a decision you're essentially having at any point in your value chain. Any other questions?
In summary, we are summarizing what the customer wants, right? Basically.
Till now, or
till now.
Till now, the point is that Okay, here is what you're saying. Your product idea is different from your venture idea. You have to explicitly think about how you will build your venture. That's the first thing. That's why I said the product idea and venture idea are two different concepts. The venture idea consists of the product idea, but don't get so carried away with your product and its features that you forget the questions of saying how will I take something to the market. Now, when you say there is a market, the question is what do you mean by a market here? You have to ask the question, what is the kind of requirement that exists there? If nobody wants the product that you're building, it does not make sense building it. You're wasting your effort and time. Now, how do you figure out whether this is required or not? Are very critical. These are questions where you need to ask, where do I find them? What are they doing when I find them? What will they pay for me? These are all answers that you would like to get a very clear or as clear an answer before you commit to making these into your business, into a business, right? Otherwise, you are like that inventor who likes to invent something, but that has no practical value today. Maybe somebody else later comes in and says, I can actually commercialize this invention by putting it in this context, right? It's very important to understand that. That's where we are, okay, for now. And then the last one I said is the definition of a market. Market refers to a group of people who have a very similar requirement, have the ability to self-reference between themselves or reference between themselves, and also have the ability and willingness to pay. Until all these comes in, you cannot say there is a market that exists. Okay.
Thank you.
So these are the three things I think I can summarize what we have done thus far. Okay. Any other questions?
Participants, please unmute to ask questions or use the chat box.
If there are no problem, I'll continue. And you can feel free to come back anytime.
Sure.
Okay, this is where we were. The next important thing to understand is, see, most times when you see a business model canvas, you will just say, I should fill it. That's where I want you to understand what is a business model, what is underlying it. If you don't understand that there is a market, there is no use of building or filling a business model canvas. Now, these three boxes meant what? This meant a product market, this meant a factor market, and this meant your product. Now, what I'm doing is I'm going to superlay a BMC on this. So at the center of your product and services that you're talking about is what we call as value proposition. And remember the gold example that I gave, the value proposition is always a bundle of things that you think your product is going to do. But this is only going to be validated if the segment on the other end, which is the customer segment on the other end, says, yes, this is where my value is. I see value in what you're doing. It's not the specific feature per se. Most times people who think only in product ideas do this, okay? Okay, this one feature that people are telling me, I will build it and then my product will be a runaway success. No, there is no guarantee about it, right? You have to understand why, where, when the customer is really having this pain point. Until that happens, what you're doing is going to be very, very fickle. It's not on a solid foundation. Okay. Now coming back, the value proposition is going to be taken to the customer segment through what you call as channels. Okay. That is why the channel is where it is. Now I told you, you got to continuously listen to your customers, and that has a specific box which captures it, which is called the customer relationships. Listen carefully to what the customers are saying. The customers may say, this is not what I want. This is something else that I'm looking at. This is only useful in this context, right? So all that is captured into the customer relationship. Now, to develop the value proposition, you will have some insights, some money, some key skills that you will get to the fore yourself. That is what we are putting in here as key resources. You'll realize that you don't have everything on your own, but you will probably get it, some of these from the market, through some kind of a partnership with your suppliers in a way you want it. And that people who do this kind of a customization for you are called the key partners. The key partners are the people who will complement you with the resources that you may not have. Could be skills you may not have as well. Okay. Now you take some of the key partners, you take some of the key resources, combine these together into a set of activities to develop or generate the value proposition. Okay. Now, if you carefully are a student of business this way, you'll realize that what is on the left hand side, the key partners, activities, and resources are all driving your cost. The stuff on the right side are the ones which will help you generate your revenue. Okay. One is a cost structure that you have, the other is a revenue stream that you will have to generate. Okay. So the BMC is designed based on the understanding of how the market exists in the back. So if you don't understand the core of it, that is what is fundamental or based on which it is building, the existence of a market is what you will need to validate first. The product is not a set of features, but a value proposition for these people. If I understand the problems that the customer face, I can figure out where the channels are appropriately. If I can actually listen to them carefully, I can see what additional revenue streams I can generate for myself. Are all on the right side for a reason. On the left hand side, it is about what you own, what you may actually find from the market, etc. And that's how your cost structures will be very different from each other. Okay. Now we'll move to the next thing, just to summarize what we said as components. The one at the center is a value proposition. It is often gray. You will have to check whether this value proposition is really desirable for the customer segment. So the three things that you do on the, whatever experiment you do on this side, whatever experiment that you do on this side is to test the desirability. Will it be useful if I do it this way, or will I have to change the channel to some other way? What should my communication be? Are all the elements that come into answering this side of the question. If you're deciding to build it, the next question you need to ask, is it feasible to build? And that's where you have this side, right? Can I build it in a feasible manner? And that's why this three components are the feasibility assessments. And at the base of it is whether this business at any point will be viable. What I mean by that is, will this be matched at all at some point? Right? If it will actually be matched, then I have a viable business. If it will never be matched, I have to ask the question, am I picking up the wrong customer segment? Can I change the customer segment? Is it good to test a different channel to reach out to these people? If both of these are not, am I missing something critical that the people are saying? That's your customer relationship element, right? Am I giving a value proposition which is very different from what they're expecting? All these are experiments that will test the desirability of your product. Do this set of tests very early on. Feasibility, most times, whatever you are trying to build can be built in the modern era, unless you're building a time machine, which is less likely. Okay. A viability of the business is very important. Otherwise, you cannot commit and grow your business. That's why this is very important. So make your calculations to say, how is the market behaving here? Is it going up? Is it declining? Am I doing something that people really want? What's the customer acquisition cost? All these are very important elements for you to figure out as you're doing this. I think I'm almost done with what I wanted to say. We can take questions if you want here.
Yes, sir. Any questions? Please unmute yourself, or you can drop it in the chat box.
Sir, what is the one best advice you want to give the people like us?
First, figure out your value proposition. That's very central. If that value proposition is not at all there, you don't even need to go I mean, if people are not valuing the proposition that you're giving, it does not make any sense going ahead, right? So don't waste your time building what you're trying to build. So go out and check if people need it or not. That will be the first one.
As a follow-up question to what Dr. Manoj asked, we are basically inventors or something of more of technology side people. So good, these trainings are arranged, but I wish there should be one-on-one with my product or idea should be presented, discussed out, and as soon as possible, I have some value proposition. I have some, markets which can be tapped upon, or the potential customers, their needs, pain points, all are there. But how to put it together and make into a business proposal or something. I know this training is for that only. I'm thankful for AIC, but am I running out of time, or there is any option where I can reach out? I think it is also for the organizers and also for user. So how to go about? Though you are going us with one step at a time and you are educating us. Thank you for that. But is there any accelerated way of doing things, as we are already sitting on the ideas and products?
See, most times, another thing which we kind of, I mean, I completely agree with you that AAC has to do it. I think Shodhan and his team will arrange for some BMC sessions. I've done it in the past batches as well. I've done a group mentoring session where I kind of take 3 or 4 startups together, have a conversation with them for about 15-20 minutes. We kind of say, what do we want to do? What is it that they can actually benefit from, etc. What will be the next course of action? It changes from startup to startup depending on what you're trying to do. But most importantly, there is something else that I want to make a point here, because I mean, I heard it as a overture of the question that you're asking. See, ideas are the most trivialist element in the entrepreneurial equation. What I mean by that, I didn't do that exercise. If I had a long more session, this is just 1.5 session, hour session. So I didn't cover a lot of things which I would cover in, let's say, 2.5 hour session, but that's okay. So it's about saying idea is not the central element of entrepreneurship. Ideas are dime a dozen. Okay. The criticality is about saying I will take action on it. Okay. Now that's difficult for a lot of people to make that jump because they are saying, what if I lose? Right? So that's where there is something called an affordable loss that will help you. That's where you got to design your experiment within the affordable loss to give you enough evidence of saying this is actually customer wanting my product. They will pay for it. You got to test that viability that we are talking about here very early on in the business. Okay. Now this cannot be done in a generic setting. I can do it for, let us say, a group of 4 people in one slot. That I've been doing. I think that structure still follows. But like I said, if you think creating an idea or a prototype is the end of entrepreneurship, now everybody else needs to take stuff off, you got to think carefully. No, that's not how it is, because there is a constant adaptation to how you are learning from the market. What has to change? What is good? What is worth the people's time and money? Will people pay for it or not? All these are different elements that will come out, right? So I want you to be thinking about it as saying, what is that action which will give me a tangible element, rather than what is that verbal assessment that I can do, or a theoretical exercise I can do based on reports. The reports are of no use in entrepreneurship. When it comes to committing money, the behavior of people is very different from what will be when they say, ha 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 ha, karo, then we'll see. Right? That's something that you got to be very careful about.
Mean to say, sir, the risk appetite, or where I stand, where the business stands, and what is at stake? Is it what you're saying?
See, it's not like that. It is about saying, see, what I'm doing as an entrepreneur, if nobody wants what I'm doing, what's the use of doing it? I'm not an artist, right? If I believe there is some value in what I'm doing, see, even an open bottle of water has a value, but it is not valuable everywhere. It is valuable only when there is a scarcity of water. If I'm actually holding it in a bucket at the top of a mountain where people come after a trekking, people don't really care about wanting a packed Bisleri water. They're just thirsty at that point in time, right? So that's what you got to find. Is it going to be a very small market for a very niche kind of a use case? In that case, am I okay with catering to that kind of a business? That will not be a VC fundable business. That's for sure, right? Because the market is very small, right? So you got to understand. I mean, separate the two. Separate yourself from the idea. The idea is what will develop into a venture. Your job as an entrepreneur is to help make it what it could actually be. It's like the parents trying to make their kids what the kid could actually be the best at, right? It's very different from saying this is my kid and the kid has to behave the way I want it to be. That's going to hamper the kid from growing. This is what will be very central to what it is. So if the kid, I mean, kid is a very strong analogy here. If the idea is not worth it, don't pursue it. If it's not matching your expectations, or you may actually be an inventor who says, look, this is an invention, I have patented it, I am going to give it to somebody else. They will run the entire show after that, right? So these are all different ways in which you can think about what you're trying to build. But the critical element is it is your journey, and you, if you decide to be the entrepreneur that you're aspiring to be, you got to think about it as saying, my job is to make this idea what it's really worth. It's not about saying it has to be the way I want it to be. No.
So many a times it is better to use the experts in which we are not.
Yeah. Get them in. Yeah.
Because
It's
otherwise
just
that
like
itself becomes
you
a risk.
sending a kid to the school, right? I mean, I may be able to teach, but the kid has a lot of benefits from going to the school. So the experts are the teachers there.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions?
Okay, just a few pointers in case you want to run this. These are some questions that will help you think through your business. The first one is, in whatever you're trying to do, if there is not a feasible ecosystem for what you're trying to do, be very critical about it. It may not be the best time to start what you're trying to do, right? Does it make sense for you to choose another location where it is more feasible to build this venture? That's a question you have to ask. That's the first one, I would say. The next is, how can the offering be developed? If the offering that you're trying to develop is going to be very costly and is not going to be feasible, then you probably have to think about shifting it in different dimensions. Do not solve a product and a value problem by simply carpet bombing. So people, for example, do this mistake very often. I built an app. I have not done my homework in terms of understanding the customer, what is the specific problem I'm solving, etc., etc. I built the app and then I put it on the App Store. App Store is okay date. Downloads are not happening. What do I do? Then they will do a carpet bombing. I will go to all the other games, advertising platforms, and say, please put this ad. I'm spending money. That is not fixing the fundamental problem, right? That's the issue. Sometimes you got to ask if shifting the customer base with the same product makes sense. It is not necessarily going to work, but you may be able to get it working in some conditions. Okay. And if it is one of the options, which one is available? Even if it is working fruitfully, you can ask this question: is there some other customer which may be wanting this product in a growth? That is essentially what I wanted to indicate in the case study I was thinking of, but the time is not feasible for it. Are there different revenue streams I can evolve based on what I'm seeing here? That's another thing that you can think about. while I'm doing this, is there somebody else who's saying this is the kind of problem, very small tweak, and that could make me realize another revenue stream, right? So very carefully listen to the customer relationship elements. You will get your next few product ideas all emerging from there. Okay, that's all I had for you people. Remember, entrepreneurship is all about action. Cognition is not a substitute for action; it is a complement to action here. Okay, and yeah, that's it. That's it. Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? If no questions, we would be winding up for today. Okay, I think there are no questions. So I thank you, sir, for sparing your precious time and helping our startups.
You're welcome.
Yes. I request the participants to take out some time. I will be sharing a Google form link. If you could please give your feedback, that would be really valuable. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Have a nice weekend.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Ram.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Google form, you will email us or how is it? WhatsApp?
I'll be sending you through WhatsApp, sir. WhatsApp group.
Oh, thank you.